like to call the trustee meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which
for which it stands, one nation, under God, with diversity
liberty.
and justice for all.
Okay, great. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Certainly. President Schultz,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Horowitz,
Mr. Horowitz is at a capital projects meeting proposing 2 projects for construction. He's talking to the town board and the comptroller about it. One is for funding of the reconstruction of the Eastport dock, which is in bad repair, and the Road H docking facility, putting new piles in. So he might join us a little later. It depends on how long the meeting's going to go. Okay?
thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay.
Trustee Warner,
Yeah.
Trustee Pell,
Present.
Trustee Welker.
Here.
Sir, we have a quorum present this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. So the next trustee work session is on September 16th at 3 p.m. and the next regular meeting is on September 21st, 2020. So we have a motion to accept the minutes, do a blanket resolution of the special meeting of June 10th, 2020 at 4 p.m., the regular meeting June 15th, 2020 at 1 p.m., and the regular meeting July 8th, 2020 at 1 p.m. I make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so carried. We have a discussion with Shellfish Seeding Services, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County. So Ed's shepherding that through.
Yes. Is Greg going to be on the Zoom meeting or?
I did invite Mr. Rivera to the Zoom meeting. He did not respond. However, I did circulate the Exhibit A to all the board members.
He's here.
Oh, he is?
Oh, he's here. Oh, okay.
Great.
Thanks, Charles.
Mr. Rivera.
Greg, are you there?
Gotta take himself off mute.
You have to take yourself off of mute, Greg.
Yeah, I'm here. I hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're going to discuss the 2020 shellfish seeding in the town of Southampton, the agreement that we have historically had with the Cornell Cooperative Extension. So Greg, can you just give us a little update and the proposal for 2020?
Sure. We've already planted a bunch of oysters, and this is part of a project we did. And this, even if it doesn't go through, we were going to do this anyway. We work with a bunch of shellfish farmers with a payroll protection program, monies that we got from the federal government. And we got oyster seed from Fisher's Island that was overwintered, and also some from a couple other hatcheries on Long Island. And we put those out with Trustee Pell and on our own in various parts of the town. And that'll be in our report. And otherwise, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're looking at about 700,000 hard clams, 50,000 oysters, and about 40,000 bay scallops. So far, we've got a really good bay scallop year. And all those numbers, you know, subject to change, but we usually provide about 1 million clams and about 15 millimeters to the town.
Hey, Greg.
So,
Yes.
Greg, I went back and checked those oysters that you put out with me, and also the ones you put out by yourself. They're still there, by the way. They're growing a little bit, and they're growing. You can see new edges on the shells.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
well, that's a really good project because they're much larger and the predation is a lot lower on these bigger oysters. So it's a really good project to get larger shellfish in the water. So I want to thank you for working on that project with us, Greg.
Yeah, thank you for your support.
I have one quick question about the bay scallops. I heard that there's some mortality rate in the Peconics again this year. Do you have any updates on what's going on as far as a potential scallop die-off this season?
I heard the same thing you did pretty much. I don't have any real data to back it up. I will talk to Steve Tettelbach, who's our scallop guy. He's actually out diving on these. There's a lot of bugs out there, just like last year. So, I'm not sure what's happening. People are telling me they're seeing these cow nose rays coming in. It's been a pretty warm summer, water temperature wise, at least it was, which is not helping.
Would it be proactive of us to put the majority of the bay scallops in the South Shore estuary waters, the Shinnycock Bay and Tiana Bay and Murch's Bay, where we have seen very little, death from this, I believe it's a parasite?
Yeah, I would think that would be a good idea. The only outlier, I guess, in the Peconics is Cold Spring. And maybe because that's a little
Okay.
bit cooler. I'm not sure why, but we could definitely target the south side, yes.
Would it be possible to have one of your crews go in there and do a quick dive in Cold Springs to see the survival rate of the scallops that we had put in there last year, just for an update for this year?
Yes, we'll get that done this month.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
I think maybe we should try Swan Island again. There's a lot of eelgrass coming back in that area, which would be, good for scallop growth.
Yeah, I mentioned Murch's Bay.
Right, right. Well,
Yeah,
particularly
because-
that area, because that's been traditional, and you
Yes.
have a lot of changing bottom in that area too.
Yeah.
With that inlet.
Yeah, I was told that there's quite a nice set of scallops in the Brookhaven side of that whole area up there also. So maybe some of our scallops, the spat, went west up there, which would be good because there is no boundaries as far as shellfish and their larvae where they go.
That's right.
Was any scallops put out in the last 2 years, 3 years or so, over there by Swan Island?
Greg,
Not
didn't
that I
we
know
put?
of.
No?
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't think so. Did we put any down? I was thinking more to the east, but I'd
I
have to
thought
check.
we did put some emerges last year.
I'll check on
Well,
that.
we'll find out.
Could you find out, Greg? So,
Yes.
And Greg with Cornell, thanks for helping the Pine Neck Canal over in Flanders. We're awaiting the results of the growth in that canal. Hopefully that'll turn into a great place for raising oyster larvae.
It could be a good
Juvenile oysters.
nursery site.
Yep.
Greg, one further thing. Did you guys get all the paperwork from us as far as the area in Tiana Bay that we were doing with Kim Barber and the shellfish and eelgrass sanctuary? Has that been executed or is that still languishing around?
Good question. I have to check with Kim Barber on that.
Could you? Because we
Yeah,
had,
make a note.
we've had a couple attorneys work on it, Kara and Martha, and now we have Sean, who's our new attorney. So if it hasn't been executed, I'll sit with him and do the paperwork. I know Scott had mentioned it about 3 meetings ago, so I'm just following up.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know who's talking in the background, but okay. Anything else for Greg?
No, that's
No, I
pretty much
guess
it for
not.
me.
Okay, great. We'll be in
Thanks
touch,
a lot,
Greg.
Greg.
Thank you for your
Thanks for
Thank
your
you,
help.
Greg.
support, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. Public hearing regarding Steve Malcolmson, 72 Far Pond Road in Shinnycock Hills. It was adjourned several times. I'd like to open the meeting, make a motion, we open the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, this is Ed's area.
Has Charles, Miss Steve Malcolmson should be on the waiting list to get on the Zoom meeting.
Is that InterScience?
I
Yeah.
believe he's basically representing himself.
I don't. Well, I see a phone number. I don't. Hang on.
I all together.
I'm just gonna let him in. Right here.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello?
Oh, Mr. Malcolmson,
Yes.
it's Ed
You're on the
Warner.
air.
You're on our Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm actually at the InterScience office, and so we're doubly connected, but I'm on my phone now, so that works fine. Can you all hear me?
Okay. Hi, Jim.
You too.
So if you can all hear me, I've sent a statement to Lisa, which I believe she has distributed to you all, and I just would like to read through it quickly.
Yep, I did give it to everybody on the board for them to review before the meeting.
Yes.
So I'll just run through it. I've lived at 72 Far Pond Road for the last 3.5 years. Shortly after purchasing the house, I went to Town Hall to view archive photos of the area. In doing so, I became aware of persistent and long-standing erosion issues both at the end of Far Pond Road and along the western boundary of my property. This problem has been inappropriately attributed exclusively to damage caused by the legally permitted rock revetment along the southern boundary of my property. I do not believe this to be the case. While I will acknowledge that my permitted revetment has been a factor, the primary culprit has been the county's gradual relocation of the channel into Far Pond, which as a result of dredging practices has been moved eastward by several hundred feet over the last 60 years, as aerial photos clearly show. Over that period of time, Far Pond Road has eroded perhaps 100 feet northward. While no private home is yet to be directly impacted, if the road continues to erode an additional 15 feet, I will no longer be able to gain access to my driveway and thus my property. Once I became fully aware of the situation, I immediately contacted Alex Greger, the superintendent of the town highway department, to inquire about the department's intention regarding protecting the road end. Mr. Greger informed me in no uncertain terms that under no conditions would he allow any structure of any kind to be placed at the end of the road to remediate the problem. He agreed only to dump sand periodically to prop up the stop sign. Over the last 2 years, the highway department has dumped no less than 80 truckloads of sand at the end of the road. I've had numerous conversations with his employees, all of whom acknowledge the pointlessness of that activity, which has done nothing to stem the erosion issue and has been both expensive and perhaps even environmentally destructive. Simultaneously, in August of 2017, I met with Ed Warner to inquire as to how he recommended I proceed regarding protecting the exposed western side of my property. He was supportive and strongly suggested that given the urgency of the situation, I immediately conduct a survey, hire an environmental engineer, develop plans and drawings, and submit an application to both the State Department of Environmental Conservation and the town trustees for approval. I immediately implemented Mr. Warner's instructions, and by August of 2018, over 2 years ago, obtained a permit from the State Department of Environmental Protection for a rock revetment along the western side of my property. I then submitted the plans to the trustees. By the summer of 2019, in a working session with the trustees, it appeared we had addressed all major concerns. I was asked as a last step, however, to propose a remediation of some sort for the road end problem, given the highway department's unwillingness to do so. I happily complied and added that element to my application, in spite of the fact it would require additional construction expense of perhaps $30,000. This in spite of the fact that it is the responsibility of the Southampton Highway Department to protect and maintain roads, not that of a private citizen. A public hearing was scheduled on my application for November of 2019. At that hearing, a number of residents voiced concerns about improving public access to the area and encouraged the trustees to delay approving my application while a more comprehensive solution to the problem was considered. I want to make very clear that I stand in support of the trustees' efforts to pursue such a solution, and I've had numerous conversations with Chairman Schultz on this matter. I stand anxious to coordinate, cooperate, and assist in any way I can as a private homeowner. Toward that end, last May, the trustees created a temporary beach by moving sand from a sandbar that had formed to the west of the end of Far Pond Road. Though it was not thought to be a permanent solution, it was a significant success, as for 3 months, a limited version of the beach that had existed 30 years ago was restored. The west side of my property and the end of Far Pond Road were protected from erosion. The area got consistent use from community members on a daily basis, sunbathing, swimming, playing, clamming, and simply enjoying the new beach. It was a significant and temporary success. At this point, unfortunately, The new beach has been eroded away by a combination of daily tidal action and several significant storms. The situation is now much as it was before the beach was restored. I still stand in favor of a long-term, comprehensive, permanent solution to the problem. But the simple, undeniable reality is such a solution will likely require the cooperation of the county, the state, perhaps the highway department, or other regulatory agencies. It will very likely take considerable time, perhaps years, as the county has already plans to dredge the channel into Flower Pond Road this fall. Thus, any possibility of relocating the channel into Flower Pond Road further westward or changing county policies regarding the dumping of dredge spoils will take a minimum of several years to implement until at least the next dredging cycle. In the meantime, the western side of my property is again under daily assault, with the road end not far behind. Over the course of the upcoming winter, it is all but assured that the juniper trees and other vegetation protecting the edge of my property will be undercut and collapse into Shinnycock Bay, and the erosion toward my house will enter a critical and accelerating phase. In fairly short order, my septic tank will be exposed and the house in major jeopardy. The southwestern end of my rock revetment is currently slumping badly into the bay. I wish I were being an alarmist, but I am not. These events are overwhelmingly likely to occur. Unfortunately, over 3 years into my journey to secure a permit to protect my property, I no longer have the luxury of time that will be required to effect the comprehensive solution we all desire. After 3.5 years of process and delay, the situation regarding my home and property is in an extremely time-critical phase. In the long run, if a comprehensive solution proves achievable and a new beach is created, protected, and nourished, any rocks or remediation that the trustees permit me cannot be a potential contributor to further erosion, because in that case, after all, my property and thus any protection that would be built will no longer even be on the coastline. It would be landlocked by the new beach. On the other hand, if given all the complications and multiple jurisdictions involved, it ultimately turns out that a more comprehensive solution is not feasible or fundable. Without protection, my property will be severely damaged and ultimately destroyed. I've been acting in good faith for over 3 years, working with the trustees, following every rule, and doing my best to dot every I and cross every T. I believe I should have the right to protect my property. If for some reason the trustees deem that my application as it stands need to be altered in some manner, I would ask me that they provide me with as much of a detailed description as possible as to what would be acceptable. I've had multiple conversations with several of the trustees about the possibilities of using geotubes or geocubes along either the coastline or my property line. There may be other alternatives. I am open-minded as to how to approach this and happy to meet with the trustees at any time. What I do not have, however, is the luxury of time. I cannot wait or go through another multiple-year cycle to gain permission to take some action. Or as the expression goes, I may win the battle but lose the war, as damage could become irreversible. I must take action as soon as possible, preferably before the winter, as time is running short to avoid severe and potentially irreparable damage to my property. So I want to emphasize the fact that I am not wedded to the proposal that we have. There are no doubt multiple solutions. But if we cannot get approval in the trustees' views for the current application, I really do need guidance. So any renewed application will be well along the way to acceptance. There's just not time for an additional cycle. So anyway, that's pretty much what I have to say. I appreciate for everyone's willingness to listen, a rather extended statement, but thank you.
Well
Thank
said.
you, Mr. Eric, you want to touch on the project that you did down, or we did down the end of Far Pond and reconstruction of the beach in front of the road end and some of Mr. Malcolmson's property?
Well, essentially, what our aim was to restore the beach as a recreation area, but also to move a large amount of sand from that spit that went into the pond out in front of the end of the road to actually document how bad the erosion is in this area. And I feel that we've shown that. So now that'll be it'll enable us to state our case before the DEC and Army Corps of Engineers and the county as what we have to do down there. That was the purpose of it, because it was all speculation before. We moved the sand and we actually observed it through the course of the summertime.
Yeah, and that material previously was put at the road end and was at Mr. Malcolmson's property. So we were just returning it to its original place of origin.
Right.
I would like to touch on a project that was done by the trustees at Little Neck Road after Sandy. The homeowner, very similar situation, but did not have any a rock revetment or any other hardening structure. We allowed that homeowner to place a row of rocks about 150 feet long. I believe there are 500 to 1,000 pound rocks along the western facing edge of her property along the channel that goes into Middle Pond. I was been there pretty much on a monthly basis for the last couple of years since the project was done. And it really has shored up the property that it's protecting and made sure that the erosion has been less. And the beach in front of it has stabilized. Looking at that project and looking at Mr. Malcolmson's property and the rock revetment, I would recommend something similar to that, a single row of 500 to 1,000 pound stones on the edge of Mr. Malcolmson's property line, somewhere between the town property and the trustee property and Mr. Malcolmson's property, and have some kind of, yearly sand maintenance agreement placed on that with that permit. We do have two very large stockpiles of sand, which we've accumulated over decades of dredging Middle and Far Pond, east of Mr. Malcolmson's property, and some of the stockpile is west of his property that we had done with the previous project that lasted for 3 months. I think it's a short-term solution that we could utilize the rocks in conjunction with a sand maintenance and some kind of grass planting on top of it to see if we could stabilize that additional, I could think 7,500 feet of unprotected property between the road end and Mr. Malcolmson's property, and to have a sand maintenance program initiated to see how long it would last. I think that would be the best, course of action right now. I know there's other applications in front of us and other thoughts. So if anybody else would like to give some, thoughts, that'd be good.
Well, as we talked with Ed and James and I discussed before when we brought up the aerial photos, it shows that a lot of the sand has been placed to the east and seems to be starving that area out. So I think the transfer of sand from that large area that we have to the east where the county's been spoiled, we move that down. That'll help things along a lot. And did you want to discuss the county where they're proposing to dredge this year, Ed?
Well, I did have a conversation with Scott Hillary and the county asking them to move the dredging of the channel template as far west as can be moved. James, you do have a time lapse of the area that you would like to show everybody what has happened from the 60s to current. Can you put that up for everybody?
Yeah, I can pull it up.
This is some research that our environmental analyst, James Duryea, did, and he showed myself and Trustee Schultz today, and it's very telling of the area over the last 60 years and how it's changed drastically.
Mm-hmm.
This is current, going backwards in time to approximately 1960, and how the channel was configured back then.
That's 1960, right?
So it's basically 60 years, as Mr. Malcolmson mentions in his paper that he sent us. So that channel went directly to the northwest, not directly to the north as it does now. That would, be in need of a whole entire modification of a permit, which I'm going to send this whole time lapse to the county dredging part of it, Scott Hillary, and asking him what would be necessary from us in order to modify that permit to change this channel from its current location and configuration to something more of what it was like in 1960, which would really change the whole dynamics of flow, basically north and south to more of an east and west, and maybe would relieve Mr. Malcolmson's property of the erosion that has been happening for the past couple decades.
But in the short term, moving sand from the east to the west around the point would greatly help the situation now. But I think that we as a board have to discuss it individually with the different board members and come up with as Mr. Malcolmson said, something that we would be comfortable with in order to streamline the application. The same as we did with Dockers, where we told them, what we wanted to see, and that they submitted the plans instead of him submitting plans and then us, talking about them, for a month or two. I think it's incumbent on us to come up with what we think would be acceptable for the area.
Yeah, because it's important that we protect the public access for the road end, the beach, and Mr. Malcolmson's property and the town property, which is just north and west of it. We're looking out for the betterment of the bigger picture, and that's where we have to come from.
Right.
And hopefully that we can accomplish, that, and also protecting the, Mr. Malcolmson's property at the same time, and come up with some kind of a solution that would, work, not only now, because we got to remember what we're dealing with now. In 20 years, sea level rise is going to be even more, obvious than it is now. And so we got to project out, not now, but more towards the future.
Right. We're also protecting a valuable piece of town property also to the east of the road there. And to stop the deposition of sand onto that wetlands behind it.
Right. We've gathered a net loss of wetlands over the last 30 years too. I mean, and it was underwater lands, which was, productive shellfish area and finfish. And there was a very nice Spartina marsh there, which has completely been covered up. So we lost that whole acre of property too.
So we've had some discussions with the DEC, and they're fine with increasing that area as a spoil site. Depends on how long it's going to take for them to amend the permit, but the county doesn't want to deposit wet spoil right there and have it sloughed right back into the channel. So right now, what we're talking about is pumping it in the traditional area, letting it dewater, and then moving it from east to west in front of Mr. Malcolmson's property and filling that area up.
What's the time frame on that?
As far as what, having a meeting with the DEC?
The dewatering and the moving of the wet to dry soil from the east to the west.
There's a substantial stockpile there already. I mean, they're going to pump it. We've been asking them to move the deposition site or the deposition of the material further west every year, because the closer you get to Middle Pond, there's a very high berm that has been created over decades of the material being deposited.
Yeah,
so
James had some
yards of material that we could access right away.
Yeah, James has had. Do you have that up? Can you do a timeline on the to the east? How large that area has grown? It's quite telling. Look at the size of that that piece of property to the east, and then what it was years ago. It was just a small sandbar.
This is 1960. prior to the county doing any dredging projects.
Right.
And as it
And you can
starts
see
to
the
go,
outline.
you can see the channel appear there, and this is where the deposition of the material has been solely on that peninsula.
And that's today, or the
And
most
that's
recent?
today.
Right.
And
It's
that was-
hundreds of
that's-
thousands of yards over there
Mhm.
that's continually is being deposited over that side to the detriment of the channel on the east side.
Mhm.
And actually nourishment of the beaches on
The
if
west.
we did move that over to the west, we'd be shoring up our 50-foot wide Shinnycock Beach Road.
Yes.
So the whole area has changed quite a bit. And say that area, Ed, wouldn't you say that area to the east is probably about like 15 feet high?
It's at least 10 feet high, because I know I had conversations with Marty Shea about it being actually too high for birds to nest on, because we put so much material there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're moving it towards Far Pond, that deposition site towards Far Pond, to fill in that little crescent-shaped beach there. But every 2 or 3 years, we pump probably between 3 and 5 or 6,000 cubic yards of material. So, over 30 or 40 years, there's a substantial amount of material that has been placed there.
Yeah. And it's all clean sand too.
It's exactly clean, white, perfect beach sand.
Right.
And when was it when the alternating of from the east to the west shifted? And when the dredging spoil was primarily deposited on the eastern side of Far Pond?
It started when I first became a trustee. We had a project in Honey Pot Pond, which is the pond that's right in back of Far Pond Road.
Mhm.
We pumped about between 15 and 1,800 cubic yards of material, and we put it right in front of the 3 homes just east of Mr. Malcolmson's property, which made it a designated deposition site. And after that, we've asked the county to move the material to that site. So I would say in the last 10 or 11 years that we've done that. Prior to that, the deposition site was solely just west of Middle Pond,
So,
where the majority of the sand has been accumulated.
mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think we got our work cut out for us in the next 2 weeks or so to come up with a couple of realistic options for Mr. Malcolmson, and then proceed, let him know, and then we'll talk to our consultant, find out what his opinion is on it, Rob Young, and come up with some solutions for him so we can proceed. Is that good for everybody?
I really think we should put a timeline that it gets done before the winter season, because the first northeaster we get, the first northeaster we have, it's going to be the dynamics of that whole place is going to change. So I think give us the board a timeline of getting this accomplished, and the permit in hand by by December is realistic, and I think it's a good timeline.
The beginning of December.
Yes.
I think we can come up with some solution. We generally have all been down there and seen the situation that we could have something within 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been going on for quite a while.
And
Yes.
saying
I have this.
end of
I have
work
the set of,
completed.
yes.
Sorry.
I have a set of plans for Little Neck. I will have James pull that application, and we'll work somewhat off of that and somewhat off of Mr. Malcolmson's current plan with InterScience, and try to create something that's will work for Mr. Malcolmson and the environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I would encourage the trustees, if at all possible, so just to refresh people's memory about coastline, the property line, etc. The property line actually runs, I guess, 3-4 feet east of the current coastline. So our current plans, because we were advised that this was, that we really couldn't propose anything west of our property line, would actually wind up destroying the last 3 or 4 feet of property west of of my property line, which seems to me rather pointless. It'll just, the trees will come down, the sand will be removed, because to place rocks on my property line actually would require more or less the destruction or the removal of those last 3 or 4 feet. So to me, what really makes sense, if there's a way to do it, is to place those rocks along the current coastline, protecting that last 3 or 4 feet of Trustee's property. I'm not trying to expropriate public lands, believe me, but what we face is the destruction of that land if the rocks are placed on the property line, because we'd have to dig down and cleave off that last 3-4 feet, which would be counterproductive. So
Can I make
ask the trustees to consider that as they are, sort of designating where to put these temporary rocks.
Can I make a real quick suggestion? If you look at some of the applications that we've approved in the area from Crab Road to Fort Pond, there's a 50-foot wide Shinnycock Beach Road, and many of the structures along Shinnycock Hills are on the Shinnycock Beach Road, and we own actually up landward of some of these. So this wouldn't be the first time in the Shinnycock Beach Road area that we would have allowed a structure or a project to take place. So it would be something that, we would allow. I mean, the trustees have historically allowed property owners like yourself to start the structure on the Trustee Shinnycock Beach Road and put it landward back to your property or upwards towards the property. So this isn't the first time that this has been done and permitted. There's multiple permits in the office that we have permitted similar to this. Jim, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Ed. We're also familiar with the end of Little Neck, and I'm certain that we can come up with something that would be acceptable to the town as long as the town helped out the design as we started to make the adjustments.
All right, well, if you're going to go take that route and start drawing something up, give me a call and I'll stop by your office and go over it with you in the process so that we can craft it into something that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
We have some good ones that we've used on the Peconic Bay shoreline as well, because that shoreline is getting hammered more than it used to, and we've seen some very sensitive and effective shoreline adjustments there.
Okay.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the time and consideration of the board.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Jim and Mr. Malcolmson.
So what would be the process now? Do you want to close the hearing and have with submittal of a new amended plans, and we would need a public hearing, or would we just take the information?
We would need to have a public hearing, I would think, on the revised plan, so we can do it for the next meeting.
Okay.
If you want to do that.
Yeah,
right?
I want to know the most.
It's going to be a significant change to the plans that was originally submitted.
Right. I just want to know the quickest process that we can get this right back in the pipeline and have it continually move forward.
Lisa, is it possible to do a public hearing at I believe the next meeting would be the 20th or the 21st?
Lisa lost connection.
Okay.
All right.
We can check that with her.
Hold on. I will ask her. She's in the next room.
Okay.
Yeah, because I want to keep this moving in the pipeline. I don't want to drop it and then pick it up.
You could probably just adjourn the meeting and till the next.
Well, you could leave it open and then
Yeah, leave
adopt
it
as
open.
amended after we vet
Okay,
out
well,
the process.
so we can leave it open and for submittal of the amended plans for the public hearing.
Right, so you could table it today and then continue the public hearing that's already open, and then if the
Okay,
plans are
so are you
acceptable, adopt
continuing
as
this public
amended.
hearing or are you redoing the entire public hearing?
I think
Sean.
we should,
Yes, so September 21st, adjourn it to September 21st, yes.
okay,
So what I've suggested so far is that they table this today, have the plan submitted, leave this public hearing open, review the plans, and then if acceptable, adopt as amended on the next
Right. Okay.
public hearing.
All right,
That's
I just spoke with Lisa. We can
She's on.
reschedule this for the
Yeah,
21st.
I'm back on.
So I'd like to make a motion that this meeting be adjourned to September 21st.
Right.
I'll
21st,
second that.
okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and we'll accelerate the conversation process with you, Mr. Malcolmson, and get this done.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks for your input.
Wow.
Next item is there's in the pipeline, there was a Mr. and Mrs. Brody that wanted to
The
discuss
public
something with
portion.
us. Public portion. We're going
Arlen
into
Brody.
public portion.
Yes, thank you very much for your time today and for allowing us to speak. My husband and I are residents of Bay Point at 61 Cliff Drive for 32 years so far. We've been here, we've been living on a deep water canal or creek, which I understand the trustees have ownership of the canal or the creek, as you call it. There was a functioning bulkhead at 65 Cliff Drive. It's been functioning for the 32 years we're living here and for more years, I understand, before that. It was built in the 50s. It was a deep water canal when we bought, until such time as the people next door to us, oh, let me backtrack. In order for us at 61 Cliff Drive to repair our bulkhead, which it was in disrepair, we needed 3 sets of permits from the trustees, from DEC, and for the Army Corps of Engineers. My husband's an architect, and at the time that we bought the house, we didn't have any money to pursue this. This past year, our neighbor at 65 Cliff Drive removed a functioning bulkhead. And since that time, it's been less than 6 months. We had a very active mussel bed in front of our house. We had shellfish. The entire canal has been silted in. The sand that came from 65 Cliff Drive has completely cut off the canal in low tide, and in high tide, it floods our properties all up and down the area. You were good enough to call the Bay Constable, and a warning violation was permitted, which ended on August 30th. The owners have plans to tear down the house at 65 Cliff Drive and put up an investment piece of property. We're asking the erosion for the past 5 to 6 months that it's impossible for there to be any functioning life going on in this canal at this time, which is very, very troubling to those of us that so care about the natural environment. Our neighbor, Tiffany Gavin, has been the spearhead of all the neighbors on the creek to get something done. What we're asking is that some sort of monetary violation is instilled in the property owners to redo, to contain the further erosion of the land, and that dredging, and they could put the sand back on the property where it was to begin with, but that we have lost a thriving shellfish population that has helping to clean up the waterways. We've lost our access. My husband is disabled, and for him and neighbors who, one of our other neighbors is in a wheelchair, to make use of our own property has become impossible. And you did do a warning, and we thank you so much for that. But more needs to be done to move this forward so that before there's absolutely no water remaining, because it's now a swamp, that you help us move this forward for these owners that have done something that would have required 3 permits for anyone else. They have no permits, and they've just been allowed to remove this bulkhead and create this horrific problem going on now for 6 to 10 residents that are taxpayers. And as I said, we've been here over 30 years. This was Dennis Downs' aunt's house that we bought. Everybody can attest to you, and we have pictures to prove, and I know Tiffany has sent it in, that this was a functioning deep water, call it a creek, call it a canal, beforehand, and now it's totally non-functioning. It's a swamp, it stinks, we've lost wildlife, and we've lost shellfish, which I hear how very important it is to the waterways in all of Suffolk County. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm very passionate.
No problem. Well, we are.
Us.
We are too. Let me just bring you up to speed on where we are. You know that we issued a notice of violation on the property, yes. And that is not the same as a summons. It's a notice that there's a possible violation. And we had a meeting set up, but with this COVID thing, it's very difficult to get everybody in the same spot all the time. And I spoke to the Bay Constable the other day, and we're trying to arrange for another meeting. Not this week, but next week to discuss it. We put a little bit of an extension on the time to handle this. We're going to be discussing, we're going to be going down there to the site and taking a look at it. There has been discussions, I know, at the DEC level about pulling this soil back and putting it back on the property and retaining it. So there has been some discussions on that aspect of it. So that's where we are right now. But just to let you know that the trustees were not aware that this bulkhead was being pulled out. This was a requirement placed on them by the environmental division when they were doing other work on the property. So we're concerned about what went on there, and we are going to move forward on trying to get this back to normal again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Schultz.
Can I just say something? I'd like to make you aware that the prevailing winds are going, pushing water into the canal at high tide. Along with that water, there's a lot of stuff that would not normally be there if it weren't that way. So on the other hand, when the canal tries to drain and can't properly, a lot of that stuff stays. So we're going to have, I'm afraid we're going to have a swamp and whatnot, and all kinds of detritus is going to be in there that we don't want. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So Tiffany Gavin is on also. I had a discussion with her last week at the trustee's office. Would you like to make any comments? Did you have any more comments on it? You're muted.
Hello?
Yes, that's good.
How are you today?
Good.
I think Mrs. Brody said it beautifully, and you and I thank you for your time that day. I understand you are very troubled by this matter, and I think the narrative that is going around town is that it was not a functioning bulkhead. This is the bulkhead prior to it being ripped out. This is a functioning bulkhead and has been for 54 years. This is now at the mouth of this canal. It was 3 feet of land that was being held back for 54 years. It was a full functioning bulkhead. This post was 20 feet back. Now it's at the water line. There is absolutely no way that this post is being now in the water line is not showing that this land is eroding, and it continues to erode. We haven't had any major storm surges. Time is of the essence to get this remediated. It's very troubling that we're being continually told, not by you, not by anyone on the trustees, that this was a non-functioning bulkhead, and therefore it didn't require any permits because it was non-functioning. It was a fully functioning bulkhead. A bulkhead was doing what it was designed to do. It was holding back land. We have photographic evidence showing that this bulkhead was functioning, and we have results of a landslide showing that once it was removed, the land slid. Ergo, it was holding back the land. I understand that you are very much in agreement of that the land needs to be contained. I know you are very, very much on our side with understanding of the negative impacts that has happened in this area. We have consulted with geologists that are telling us the heavier sediment is coming in and now not being able to be flushed out because there's no more low tide. It's been completely blocked at the mouth of the canal. I appreciate that you are trying to get the land meet this low tide site meeting, which will be very, very telling. There will be nobody will be able to further deny what happened there once they see it. I think once you see it, these pictures are very disturbing and very telling, but seeing what has occurred there and denying that the land was being held back by a bulkhead, it can no longer be denied.
Can you tell me the origin of that photograph that you have there? What came to be that take that photograph before?
I didn't take it.
No, I know you didn't take it, but where did you get it from?
Zillow.
Help us out.
I think that was either Zillow. It was from the real estate pictures.
Oh,
These are
okay.
real estate. So I was told when that the pictures, when I was contacting the DEC, he told me that he reached out asking for the photographs of that bulkhead. This was many months ago, and that they were lost. I did foil the property and did not receive those photos. And it's a requirement when you're going for an application of permit that you have to supply 2 sets of photos of the property, the site conditions, and any structures on the property. I have not received those photos.
Just to clarify, who lost the permits?
I don't know if they lost
what agency were you? Did you ask that said they lost the permit?
When I was speaking with Andrew Walker of the DEC.
The DEC.
Yeah, he said Marty Shea told him it was a non-functioning bulkhead, to which I replied, it was a very functioning bulkhead. Why don't you refer to the pictures? And it was told that there were no pictures to review.
Oh, okay.
But I was able to very quickly go online and provide the pictures of the functioning bulkhead to the DEC.
Oh, okay, but that's from another source. They may have not received any photos because no photos were necessary for what work they were doing upland.
No, they are necessary. I foiled the property, and by one of the permits that they had to gather, they had to supply 2 sets of photographs of the property, and any structures on the property. And it was checked.
I'll request that of the property owner's attorney.
Yeah.
Because they obviously have copies, so we can see.
Okay.
Okay.
Has anyone asked the DEC what their definition of a non-functioning bulkhead is?
Yes, so the definition, there are 4 different reactions to the bulkhead removal. In no language does it say 100% removal of a bulkhead is the proper channel to take. If there is 20% of the material that's falling from the material of a bulkhead, you go ahead.
The wooden stavings are missing. There's a percentage of the wood stavings that's missing.
Right.
There's a formula that the DEC uses, yes.
Yeah, right. So that formula, but they said it would be repaired or modified. They have, when I brought this to their attention, they have never heard of a 70-foot bulkhead that was holding back 3 feet of land on an elevated property being removed completely in its entirety. So the question is, go ahead, to answer your question.
If it had been brought to our boards, an application, we would have reviewed it much different, because removing something similar to that would cause an excessive amount of material to go back into the bay. So what we would have looked forward to would be a set of plans, maybe cutting the bulkhead in half with a restoration behind it, and basically a wetland restoration, planting it so the material had the ability to be stabilized with a root system, so it all wouldn't have went back into the bay.
Right.
We've done that in Quogue and other places. In Hampton Bays at the Ponquag Manor, we did a low sill bulkhead which held back the
Quannock Bay.
Yes.
Quannock Bay, the West Hampton Yacht Squadron, quite a few other areas where we cut it down to the lower whaler and let it decay as the plants grew up around it.
Yeah, basically the wetlands reconstructed behind it with a root system, and then it becomes a functioning wetland, and then it could substantiate itself being there. But when you have a 2 or 3 foot elevation change, there's nothing to hold that material back. So like I said, if it was brought before our board, we would have done a different type of review and came up with probably a different outcome than what is there right now.
Mr.
So what is the plan?
Tiffany, wait a second. May I just ask a question? What can you do as a trustee board if your remediation would have been perfectly fine? Obviously, you have an incredible sense of what needs to be done or what should have been done. Now it was not done correctly. What is your authority as trustees? How can you assist us to change this or remediate it or bring it back to where it should be?
Well, the easiest way would be have an application before us from 65 Cliff Drive, the property, on what their plans are, what they're going forward to do. We don't have anything to review now. So any recommendations we make, they don't have to listen to. We're more or less discussing this with the public, trying to address your concerns and to move forward in a plan that allows that channel or somewhat of a channel to be reclamated, removal of the material, put somewhere on the property so it doesn't go back in the water immediately, and also look at the adjoining property, which no longer has that property's bulkhead protecting it. Because what's going to happen is, over time, 65 Cliff is going to be eroded, and the property just north of that, I don't know if it's 61 or 63.
It is 69.
No, ours is too.
And ours as well.
We're getting some of their sand.
So eventually that erosion that's taking place on the property that the bulkhead has been removed is going to transfer itself north and east towards the other properties. And then the whole entire, canal is going to be filled in to the point where even at high tide, it's going to be impossible for water to exchange. At that point, then it's the water, the salinity is going to change and become fresher. And then you're going to have a different type of wetlands in there. Then you potentially could have mosquitoes in there and other issues, because I've dealt with this in Shinnycock Hills. There's a canal across from the Hampton Maid that used to be a dredged canal and a functioning canal, and it's completely closed itself off from the bay, and it's almost become like a freshwater pond, and it has a noxious smell, and it's completely changed. This is something we have to take in consideration moving forward, how this is going to transition into something totally different than what it was and what you guys purchased and what everybody else purchased on the properties. You buy something with an access to the cove through a small boat or a paddleboard, and you're basically eventually over time are going to lose that ability to do that.
Okay.
How do we stop that? So the application at this point so we have given 6 months towards trying to get this remediated. The homeowner at this point fully understands what has occurred here and how it has occurred here. At this point, why can't we be getting this violation turned into a summons?
Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to have a conference with them. And we're trying to arrange that as soon as possible to get everybody together. We want to get this thing straightened out too. Now, it's, I believe there is a willingness of the person, the bulkheaded property, former bulkheaded property, to work with us and get this resolved. They want this resolved as much as we do. So I believe there's a willingness. Now, we have to meet with their attorney or other representatives that they bring forward to figure out what's going to go on. So a lot of this discussion might be moot, and we might be moving forward on it without talking about, litigation and everything like that, we just need to get together and discuss this. And that's why we put the notice of violation on there to move this along faster. So we just had a little bit of scheduling problems as we say, like with Secretary Treasurer Horowitz is at another meeting now discussing capital projects and other things going on. So we're just trying to get everybody together, and we want to do that really soon.
So can we put a timeline on that? So because in all fairness, it's been taking, again, nothing against you guys, with the town, 6 months trying to get a meeting. So are we going to give this kind of leniency to the homeowner, or can you put?
Well, we had a meeting
30
set. We had a meeting set a couple of weeks ago, but we had to cancel it because there was some other things going on with the town attorney's office, and there was scheduling conflicts.
Oh, with the homeowner.
With the homeowners,
Oh,
partially,
okay.
it's partially our fault. So we're just going to move it forward a week until after the holiday's over.
Got it.
We'll start moving on, and then
All right.
come up with some suggestions and see if it's amenable to them. Maybe we can resolve the whole problem. And I have called up the head of the DEC to discuss this also. I believe that she just texted me responding to my call. So we're going to try to all work together and move this thing along. This and Mr. Malcolmson's project that we were just discussing, that's a large issue too.
Yeah, that sounded.
Yeah.
That sounded terrible. Terrible. And Mr. Schultz, may I ask you a follow-up question? How could we move forward so this never happens again? How do we help our community so we can never have this happen to any other person's environment?
What, as far as another agency doing something on trustee regulated structures?
Yeah.
Well, I believe those are discussions that are taking place right now in the town hall.
It would be a change to our blue book to specifically reference removing of a permitted trustee structure without a permit from the trustees or a review from the trustees. That would be the best way to have this not happen again.
Yeah, we have a whole slew of different changes to the blue book this fall that we're going to be discussing. So that's one of them.
That's one of them, yes.
If you might want to put in there, cannot remove a bulkhead.
Well, that's
without a review of the
unfortunately, we
trustees.
can't do that.
Well,
we can't make people
you
protect their
can't.
property.
Right, you can't make someone retain their property. But if someone does cause actions to fill in trustee property, then we have other courses of action that we can take. That would be
right. So without causing negative, if they had to prove that no negative impact would come to the surrounding areas.
Well, we can't require somebody to save their property, but like I said, if it does cause impact to our property, which is everyone's property in the town, then we have other courses of action. Rather than having it in the blue book, we can take them to court civilly for damages to the people's property.
The meeting with that you're going to be having with the homeowner and her attorney, should we have an attorney present? Can we have somebody there representing us or Aram?
I don't know. I don't want to jeopardize the town's position. I'd have to go over that with our town attorney.
Okay.
I mean,
I think it's best that we handle it
Got
Yeah.
it.
to our
I think
process
so.
first.
Okay.
It's between not only another town agency, but also between us and the homeowner. And I think that getting too many people involved might damage
Be
the situation,
detrimental.
you know. I mean,
Okay,
there's
that
been
makes
a lot
sense.
of tempers have been flaring down there, and I think it'd be better that we just talk to them and then let everybody know what type of resolution we have.
Okay, so we're hoping to hear in 2 weeks, maybe we'll regroup at a trustees public portion, and hopefully there might be some.
I think that's fair. I mean, I was trying to schedule it for, the week after Labor Day.
Okay.
You know, that week after Monday.
If you need any pictures, I have them.
Okay.
If you need any information, I have a lot of information. I've done a lot of research and spoken to a lot of people to educate myself as to really how our environment has been damaged, and in moving forward, how what we're facing is very troubling. And we really appreciate the trustees in acknowledging this and helping.
Well, fortunately, you have a lot of residents that have been there for a long time and can offer historical perspective on things.
Yes, one of the neighbors was there for 70 years. I think I showed you some of those photos of them boating in and out of this canal in the 50s. So it has really taken a very, very bad turn for the worst.
Right.
So thank you
Okay.
very much.
We'll keep
And
in touch.
We appreciate it very much.
Okay. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything on the board? Okay. We'll go down there and look at we'll talk to the people when we set up that meeting.
Great. Thank you, President
Okay.
Schultz.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you all.
Okay. Is there anybody else that, Charles, that you have on for public portion? Let's see, you have a Joe Velarde. Is that for a permit?
I have no one else in the waiting room. Everyone
Okay.
else is on, so.
Okay.
This is Joe. I was just listening in. Tiffany's my wife. I don't want you.
Oh, okay.
Forgetting somebody.
Okay.
Thanks. She said enough.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll move into the permit portion of the agenda. So first on the agenda is the trustee resolution 2020-175. This is the application of Margaret E. Wentworth Living Trust, and that's at 15 Sandpiper Court in West Hampton. We discussed this at the work session, and I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So carried. Next one is 2020-176. This is the application of the Benedict C. Larson Revocable Trust, 3 Bishop Avenue, West Hampton. Body of water is Beaver Dam Creek. This is adjacent to the property that the town is purchasing through the CPF funds. So I make a motion that be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So carried. Ed's next.
Trustee resolution 2020-177 for application for Farron Ferrid, 15 Windermere Close, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map at 900-322-4-1.8, body of water Wells's Creek. This has been discussed at work session, meets all the criteria. I recommend its approval. I like to move it second on it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So carried.
Trustee resolution 2020-178, application for Hampton Hills Association, Inc., 15 Bayview Drive, Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-269-1-11, 12, and 13, body of water, Shinnycock Bay. This has been a permit that's been in front of us before. Recommend that we move it forward. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All in favor?
Also carried.
Aye.
Trustee Resolution 2020-179.
Thank you.
Application of Green Harbor LLC, 12 Green Street, Village of Sag Harbor, Suffolk County Net Tax Map 903-3-1-14, body of water, Upper Sag Harbor Cove. This is for construction of a catwalk with a floating dock assembly. I would like to request its approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that for a walk-on resolution for the application of David A. Glass. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just give me a moment, please. to
Okay.
I just need a moment.
No problem.
Okay, so Eric, you made the motion to walk it on?
Yes.
And who was the second, please?
I was.
Bill was.
Okay, it was unanimous?
Yes.
Okay, and to adopt?
Yeah, so now I'm going to make a resolution that we adopt the application of David A. Glass, 70 Cedar Avenue, North Sea, New York, body of water in North Sea Harbor. It was a previously approved application that a couple of years ago, and they didn't pursue it, so now they want to redo it. Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Okay, Scott Horowitz has not rejoined the meeting. It's be a long meeting now with the town controller, so I'll read the resolution. This is 2020-180, warrant number 15 of the trustees. Would you like to read the, you have
Yes.
the information on that? Yeah.
Bloodhound LLC, $410, water line for maintenance building. Creative Safety Supply, $226.96 for 4x4 and boat ramp stickers. Robert H. Fox, DBA Sea Level, $1,450 for the Carter's Creek Hydrographic Survey. Interscience Research, $1,370.50. Planning and Environmental Services for Mecox Bay. Liberty Ironworks, $39.90 for maintenance and repair equipment. Port Lumber Corp, $224 for maintenance supplies. Trustees of the freeholders and commonalty of the town of East Hampton, $2,000 for water quality contribution, for a total of $5,721.36 for warrant number 15 of 2020.
Okay, make the motion that it be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Okay, trustee resolution 2020-181. This is authorizes the purchase of telecommunication connectivity services for the New York State OGS contract with Cellco Partnership, Verizon Wireless. This is authorizing resolution for an expenditure for the cell phone plans. So make a motion that this be approved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Bill Pell's next.
This resolution 2020-182, resolution authorizing trustee to waive 2021 application fee of $300 for the Sea Scouts of America in North Sea Harbor. We have done it before.
Okay.
Billy, are they two moorings, and do they have the boats specifically for the Sea Scouts on them?
Yes, that's what I was told. And the insurance is supposed to be up to date, because I know the Boy Scouts are having a hard time right now.
Yeah. So we have the backup documentation on all of this?
Yes.
Yes.
We did create insurance certificates on this, Trustee Warner.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a couple of months now.
And they'll be removed December 1st, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay.
It's very different on this one.
Yep.
Okay. Just making
Locked
sure,
in.
Billy.
This is really locked in now.
Yep.
Okay. So he's making the motion. You have a second on it?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So carried. So Ed, you're going to read the next one with three whereases, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Trustee Resolution 2020-183, notice of public hearing to accept donation of 141 feet of bulkhead reconstruction repair services of the town-owned portion of the bulkhead immediately adjacent to the homeowner owned bulkhead at 2 Peconic Crescent LLC, Shinnycock Hills, New York. Whereas the Board of Trustees, the freeholders, commonality of the town of Southampton, trustees are the owners of 141 feet of bulkhead located on Peconic Crescent, Shinnycock Hills, New York. And whereas specifically the Board of Trustees, the freeholders, the commonality of the town of Southampton, trustees have received an application for a bulkhead construction renewal permit from the owner of property located at 2 Peconic Crescent, Shinnycock Hills, New York, 2 Peconic Crescent LLC. And whereas the owner of 2 Peconic Crescent, Shinnycock Hills, New York, 2 Peconic Crescent LLC has requested permission to construct from the trustees to donate reconstruction and repair services of trustee-owned portion of the bulkhead consisting of 141 feet immediately adjacent to the homeowner-owned bulkhead located at 2 Peconic Crescent, Shinnycock Hills, New York. Need a second on that?
Okay, that's a question on that. It's just resolved that the public hearing will be held on September 21st, 2020 at 1 p.m. at the town hall. That's,
Yes, I didn't see that. Oh, yes, so sorry.
Yes,
Yes,
that's no problem.
That's correct.
That's no problem.
So,
Okay.
I would like a second to have the public
Second.
hearing.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so carried.
Sorry, who was the second, please?
I was.
Bill?
Thank you.
Okay, Bill.
This is 2020-184. A notice of public hearing on amendment of the Blue Book section A34, 63B, beach regulation and four-wheel drive calendar year term, 61, 6 calendar year term, and 62B for additional nomination fee of transfer of permit to new vehicles. Basically what this is that we're giving the four-wheel drive and the boatman people the option of buying a 3-year permit, and also it makes it easier for our office. So people don't have to come in every year, they can come in every 3 years to get their permit for their vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for a second on this.
Second that one, Billy.
Thank you.
Okay. Then this is on September 21st, 2020 also. So,
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again?
This is 2020
So carried.
2020-185. Notice of public hearing to amend Blue Book section 340, A340, 64 public access in order to addition subsection C to allow the implement of trustee-owned kayak canoes and stand-up paddleboard and storage racks, guidelines for storage permits. This is also on September 2020 at 1 o'clock. Basically, this is so the trustees put kayak different places on trustee-owned property to rent them out for the people they use, the freeholders. Looking for a second for this.
Second on that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So carried.
This is 2020-186. Notice of public hearing to amend Blue Book A340, section 36 moorings in order to subsection D to allow for implement a permit to process for dinghy moorings to correspond with moorings. Basically what this is, that if you have a mooring and you leave a dinghy to get out to your boat on the beach, it has to have a number to match up with your mooring. Looking for a second on this one.
Second on that one too, Billy. It's a good one.
Same day.
Same day.
Okay, right. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So carried. Okay, that concludes the regular business. Anybody have any comments, anything to add to the meeting? Just progress on a lot of things.
Yes.
Is that it? Okay, motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming. Okay, closed.